All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the webinar for May for the Advanced Permaculture Student Online. Our community is one that ranges all over the world, ranges different disciplines, different interests. We have got people who are just learning about permaculture for the first time. We've got people that, let me see if I can make this like a little bit safer. I'm possibly, hold on. All right. That's not better. I'm adjusting the live feed over here on Facebook. Yeah, maybe if I do that. There we go. All right, much better. All right, so we have people who are just learning about permaculture, and then we have people all the way on the other side of the spectrum that have been practicing permaculture for a very long time. Maybe even teaching PDCs. We have got a lot of teachers in this course too. So this is an incredible community. Many of you are helping each other behind the scenes or inside this Facebook group over here. And you are creating that fabric of the community that really makes this a living community. So as we go through the videos, we're asking questions, we're getting answers from me, we're getting answers from the other teachers, we're getting answers from other students. But then as we implement all these things that we're learning, we're following one of the niches that we found. We're like, this is me. We get the support that we need so that we can follow through, that we can find the path, we can find the solution. And inevitably, when we encounter those difficulties, those problems, we'll be able to do what's necessary to get past them, to incorporate them into our understanding and greater learning. So I'm just going to pull up right now the good morning, good afternoon, good afternoon. Depending on where you are, it's good morning, good night, good evening, good afternoon. I'm going to pause this right now. The chat is on. If you click down there, if you're on Facebook, you can just click down below and comment. If you are on YouTube live, just click, and if you're in the course, click on the YouTube icon and it will take you to YouTube live with the live chat. So please do that so you can add your questions in. But I'm going to be initially responding to common issues that people have. And that's the topic really of today is how to get through the hardest stuff that you'll encounter in your designing process. Let me see if I can take out Seth Godin's book, and there we go. I have more of a body, not just a floating head. All right, so I probably could even take it down another layer. Oh wow, that's even better. Okay, so that is up. We are ready to roll. I'm going to be doing something different today, where I'm going to be doing some screen sharing. So for those of you on Facebook, I would migrate over to the course and click on the YouTube so that you can see the screen sharing that I'm going to be doing. The biggest issues that people are facing in finishing their design and feeling that they can even like finish and get their PDC in many cases is the topographic mapping. So what's the deal with topographic mapping? Why is it so hard? Why are some people just being able to do it and some people are hung up on it from the beginning? And then some people aren't quite sure if it's necessary. The thing with the PDC is it's a criteria-based thing. You have to basically sit through 72 hours of certain information, and then you have to do a design with certain criteria. And one of the criteria is a topographic map. The issue with that is some people have access to topographic maps for their site, and they can just go get it. And they can just look it up and print it out and then draw on it, essentially. And that's like, or upload it into another program in the in the course, or I mean on your computer, and then edit it. So some people have it very easy when it comes topographically, and they're in certain countries. And then in other areas where there is no historical surveying, or investment for Google to really do much data gathering, they don't have the information. So as an educator, my understanding is that everyone should be able to complete the task, right? The certification route can't be one that like only a certain population, socioeconomic population, especially if that's highlighted, that's you know what I mean? If only people of a wealth bracket can do it, then there's a problem, right? And so that's why I've tried to suggest free tools, um, getting information wherever we can, online, Google Earth, SketchUp. The student version you can download for free for a short period of time. But the professional tools are extremely expensive, and it's like a whole education separate from my course to learn to use some of the stuff that we're going to discuss today. So there's a spectrum, and I want to acknowledge the spectrum so that those of you who are stuck in your design process at the topographic map section, we can just get it out there so that you know what to do to get through that section in a way that serves you, in a way that doesn't hurt you later on. Because we're only doing this topographic mapping stuff to help you. It's not to punish anyone. It's not to just make you jump through a hoop, though it is part of the criteria. And so knowing how to do it or find it or interpret it is important. But as I've said, it's just not fair. And I mean, obviously, there's a prerequisite that we all have to have a computer to take part in all this, right? But that being said, even in person, for them to require topographic mapping skills seems like a real stretch. But they do require topographic mapping because, or reading of topographic mapping, acquiring of topographic mapping, having that as an essential step in the design process, because without it, it's like you're flying like blind. And and when you're flying, you know, if you're off by this much, 600 miles, into your journey, you're off by a lot. You know what I mean? With your trajectory. If you're like pointed here and then you're pointed like there, you're going to be going very different directions. So yeah. So I just want to get all this stuff out there, but make sure that we don't throw out the baby with the bathwater at any point in this journey today, because I want people to understand the reason that we have topographic mapping as a PDC requisite step. And if we can get the functionality of the topographic map in a different way, as we have seen other people do in the course with different programs, then we can continue forward, because we've accomplished the same thing. So what am I talking about? All right, well, let's do a screen share here, and let me go over here for a second. All right, here we go. So I'm just going to pull this out over here and bring this out over here so I can read it. Okay, so there's a spectrum of solutions. I don't necessarily need to screen share yet. So I just want to talk about the spectrum of solutions. Hey everybody, by the way. I feel like y'all arrived while I was just jumping into it. Yeah, the chat is live over on YouTube. Let me see if there's any. Yep. All right, and comments are going. and I've got the first question right there on in there. So I'm tracking all this stuff. I have it all. We'll screen share in a minute, but let's just start off with defining things. So this spectrum, sweet, James, Zachary, Cheryl, Aaron, Natalie, thank you all for coming. Awesome. I'm going to define these first, and then I will get to the questions after we go through this. So topographic mapping solutions. Well, there's really a spectrum here from like drawing on a piece of paper to professional, like down to the inch, centimeter, millimeter, crazy precise. So we can eyeball it, or we can use a computer to even eyeball it, like we can draw on the computer, that sort of thing. We could also, the middle way, the road that, kind of is the DIY computer way, SketchUp, Google Earth, or you find topographic surveys online. And that's kind of where permaculture is at, where with the PDC, level permaculture. There are mapping classes, there are certification routes, there are professional trainings. There are all these different things in permaculture that okay, sweet. So thank you, James, for taking care of that. So there are these free things that we can use our computer to get, and then we can manipulate them, and so we can do some cool things. So we can find those like topographic survey maps, then we can like overlay them on top of the Google Earth or SketchUp or Google Earth and SketchUp. We could do all these different things, but the problem is that the GPS, Google Earth, that stuff is not very accurate. And there on some sites it is, right. And some sites it's not at all. So we're in a situation where the community is relying upon data that is sometimes good, sometimes bad. So sometimes it's serving people, sometimes it's not. That's why I always say you do it, you make the plans, and then when you are actually going on the site, that's when the truth is revealed. So that's why Johnson scopes are so good. I've got one over there on the shelf right here, because then you're like, I've got my design. We're going to go out and prove it. So you go to that point on the design that says that elevation, and you look on your iPhone, you see if it's that elevation, and you go, I should be able to see this thing over here at that elevation. And like you get to just map it out. You get to just verify all the different points, seeing that, hey, it actually is working. It actually is right. Or we are a meter off, or we are 12 meters off. Something's awry. But we only do that by actually doing the testing, actually doing the work on the ground. So I always say that because of that reason, because there's inconsistency, because there's time, because there's erosion. These programs are free for a reason. Because the next layer up is not free and it's expensive. So maybe you're using SketchUp, maybe you're using Keynote, or there's this program called GIMP, and it's like a little animal elf thing. And it's like free Photoshop. You might be using all these different things, but above that layer is the professional layer. And this is not taught in most permaculture courses that I've never seen it taught in a permaculture course that I've been in. But there's this like next level, and they are constantly like leveling up. So what do I mean by this? So there's this, like radar, right? There's this thing called LiDAR, which is light radar. And so you can have a drone pass, and they can be beaming down this light and then mapping everything below ground, and then also the landscape. And it's really cool technology. People are using drones to do it. There's a bunch of different things. Let me pull up Let me screen share with you. We'll desktop it for now. All right, infinite. Here we go. We're infinite. All right, don't look too far at that. Here we go. Oh, this is the question. Comments are coming in. Contour map. Here we go. Contour map creator. So this is something someone was using. What you do is you enter your location, you enter your like all your different information, and then you load it, and then it spits out a contour map for you. So that is contourmapcreator.urgr8.ch. So that is something that's been shared many times in the class. And you're, hey Mike, hey Rebecca, great to see you all here. So that's an option there. You just plug it in. Just like searching for My Topo has topographic maps for U.S. citizens. I think just U.S. citizens. There's some inconsistency sometimes, but this is a fast way to do things. And then contour map generator, contourmapgenerator.com is where you go for that. It's the same sort of thing though. This one like takes your email and you sign up. So for a self-study program that's free. So they're trying to start a relationship with you there, but it's a free service, and that's always, you pay somehow, right? You're either paying with your email to listen more to what they want to teach, or you're going to pay in money and use some of these other programs. And then GIS mapping. So geographic information systems are extremely useful for both small-scale urban and broadacre permaculture design projects where it can be scaled up or down to meet the needs of the landowner or permaculture designer. GIS can significantly shorten observation time by integrating geospatial data sets of soils, hydrology, elevation models, solar radiation models, land cover and vegetation communities, human footprint, remotely incensed imagery structures and zones. And in one of them, I was reading that they can, and it says here, yeah, you are able to model water flow and catchment. So it's the next level of Google Earth. So it has physics, so you can actually play things out, and then you can hand that off to like someone working with computer assisted design, CAD, and engineers then can go and build this stuff. So what's CAD? So this, as you can see, is expensive, but this is computer assisted design. And so there's some pretty epic stuff that you can create here. But it is expensive because it's so professionally precise. Architecture, engineering, construction. We're talking, there's a free trial here. Product design and manufacturing, media, entertainment. So there's a lot of utility to all of this, but it's an education in its own right, and it's professional. So we're talking about learning stuff that you would learn to work on movies and work on commercials and professional designs for habitat restoration or huge city planning. There's a lot to. Hey Neil. There's a lot to the professional side of things, and it's competitive. Folks are getting better and better, improving the offering more and more, which for us makes it easier and easier for us to learn how to do all this stuff because the tasks are more automated. Let me pop back here. The way this is, there we go. So they're going to make it easier to use those professional tools, and they are making it easier as they're making them better. But we're going to see this side of things in permaculture increasingly be niche service oriented. So the people who are engineer minds, people who love drones, people who are great with mapping and design and like electrical stuff, they're gonna be on top of this, and we're all going to end up just paying them to do mapping for us because and then even further on, Google Earth and all those people will catch up, and it will be so good that again it will be free to get designs that we can use that are considered to be the best. Because for a while, what we had with Google Earth and all that stuff was the best that we could do in a way where it involved multiple like a PDC course or class. But this professional stuff really is its own course, really is its own branch of study, like lidar and drone operation and all that stuff that I think is cool. But then I'm like, and then the drones crash, huh? You know. Um, so yeah, there's a whole spectrum. Now you're like, okay, great, Matt, I got it. Now relevance to me. Um, well, many of you have expressed that you are frustrated with the topographic map. Many of you have expressed that this is the only reason that you haven't submitted your PDC, your design. So let's talk about why we map, and then let's talk about how we can accomplish those same things potentially with these programs, potentially with other ways. So why do we map? What's the point of doing all this mapping stuff? Why, if I could just go out there and just install things and just plant things, do I just do that and I'll just figure it out as I go along? Well, which way is down? Sometimes it's hard to know. And then where is down in relation to all the different obstacles? Where is down in relation to other potential areas of benefit? So knowing the flow of water, the way things go downhill, the way things want to travel, way erosion will travel, is going to tell you so much. And it can get really tricky if you don't have a map and you're like, okay, I'm going to go out in that spot and go look right now. And you might have been walking by this area this entire time, but without that map showing you that there's this flat area right here, you're not going to have a sense of what to look for in those areas. So knowing where the water flows, well, that leads to where the water will collect and distribute. So you're like, okay, all right. Well, as water slows down, it drops the clay content, and that's where the soil types start changing. So suddenly knowing where down is, knowing the water path, knowing tells you where the water catchment and distribution points are. Catchment, along the key line at the key points. And then it tells you where the roads are. You want to put them on the ridges and then have come off the ridges, on contour for the most part, as much as possible, keep things safe. Maybe you're benching it out, but you're suddenly seeing where those things go because of the map. And then because you see where the water is, where the water will be held, where the roads can go, suddenly you're like, oh, there's where the houses go. And does this sound familiar? Yes, it should, because this is exactly what the Gregorian's platform and Yeoman's scale of permanence relies upon. And it's logical, and that's why we naturally come back to it. We flow into it. We just like going down to that rightness. So we then know where our house is. So we map so we know where everything goes. We do contour mapping because interesting things happen. Suddenly your backyard that people are showing me where it's like random dots everywhere, I see it goes like this. And I'm like, What are you doing about that? Because that's in there like, oh yeah, every year it's crazy. Like, okay, let us deal with the flooding of your yard and garden every year first before we like plant more fruit trees. And so it really helps when we have that contour map. It allows me as the person, looking at the designs to know what's possible and what makes sense. I mean, I just look at design, it's like it looks good, I guess. And then there's topographically, and I'm like, oh, and I can see the landscape. And that may take time to develop, but as you do it, you'll see it. And as you do it on sites, you make maps of sites or look at maps of sites that you live on or work on, then you begin to create that fluency of understanding that connection between the visual representation and the real. So it's really the behavior of water on a landscape. It's opportunities for stacking. It's all these great things, but we have options where we can plug it in and get a topographic map. We have options where we can ask for help from someone else who can help us get the topographic mapping part done. In the class, there are students that are helping other students. Keep this in mind. Maybe reach out in the Facebook group. And then lastly, keep in mind that you can do it by hand and do arrows for the direction that water flows in those unique areas. You can use a phone, a cell phone app, and you can check the elevation at each of those spots. And then you can make a map by just making like a grid and mapping out those points. And there are ways to create an understanding of which way is down, of which way the water flows, of the water catchment areas and potentials. We can get a good idea of where to look for good soil. We have a really good idea of where the roads and the access could be would be the best to be. And then we see the locations that we could put homes and houses and buildings, as well as a myriad of other possibilities, including grazing. Um, yeah, everything. So this is really important stuff. This is not stuff that we can just shrug off in our designs. And so I really want to encourage those of you who do not have any data, can't get any data, are outside of the GPS, signal range mapping area, to get elevations, to use stuff like a Johnson scope, figure out, go out there with stakes and an A-frame or a bunyip, level, and figure out some fundamental truths about your site. Go out and see where the longest contour line could go, longest swale, I should say, could go. Go out and see where the common points are on your landscape, and really get to understand what the landscape has to offer, so that when you do draw that map, it is valuable information that will allow you to reflect on it and get more insight. So in other words, the more accurate your map is, the more you can pour yourself into it, trusting that new insights will come out of it. But if it's an inaccurate map, it's very hard to be like, oh, well, what about this section here where the loop goes like that? That could be, you know what I mean? It's like you have to have accuracy to have trust, to have the kind of lean into some of these things that you need to get them done. So I really would recommend trying as best you can to get help to get these things done, to get these things as well done as you possibly can in your circumstance. So that is what I recommend. I hope that was helpful. Again, search in the Facebook group for contour mapping and you will find the programs. I mentioned them in this, the ones that have worked for multiple people. And now I am going to look for questions. All right. Would you be willing to post a link to that scope? Couldn't find anything about it online when I looked. I don't know what scope we're talking about, Aaron. I'm so sorry. My brain, after doing 2 lives today, is a little tired. But I will share what I can with you all. So just please share with me what you mean. Oh, the Johnson. Yes, the Johnson scope. Sorry. It's right there, Matt. So the wonderful thing about this is there's no batteries. There's just a simple level inside it. It's just a little air bubble inside it right there. You can see it. And this tells you when you're looking into the distance, when you line up on the horizon line in here, the bubble. This tells you when you're looking at something flatly, you know what I mean? You're looking at it on contour. So that's like $15, I believe. That's a Johnson scope. I'll read it to you. It just says Johnson. But yeah, very cool. All right, let's go back over here. And I am going to be looking over here at these questions. Oh yeah, there was a question on our chat too. Okay, so oh wait, I think I answered this. Do we need a database of different professionals which have the experience that we need? You could, I mean, installing ponds in certain areas, in certain states, I would say consult a professional, just because there's difficulty, there's red tape in many cases, and depending on how big you want the pond. That being said, you can absolutely create a pond on your own without a professional. Marvin Weber has done it. I think it's Weber. No, Weber might be 2 B's. Weber, I think might be his last name. But Marvin's certainly done it. You can do it if you, and it's easy in certain climates and with certain soils. I would say in our climate of Central Valley that it's going to be difficult to get water to hold in a dam unless there's a professional there and he's done it before in the local area with ponds that have lasted many years, because you're going to want to seal that pond well. So they're going to be doing bentonite clay. They're going to be doing different things in that dry, arid, decomposed granite area. There is some clay like in pre-opaline soils, crazy weird geological things. But for the most part, we're talking about like sand, crystalline soils. So I would say, oh dear, the feed just kicked off on Facebook. So those of you still with me on YouTube live, thank you for being here. Hopefully those on Facebook migrate over to here. I don't know what it did, but hopefully what I had filmed is preserved. So I've suggested some links that are free topographic maps. I highly recommend consulting at least with a professional especially in the dry, arid landscapes of the Sierra Nevadas, because of the soil types. Um, you'd want to do this once, you'd want to do this well, and you'd want this to last for a long time. So I would say in our soil types that I would get help. And you have a big project, 150 acres of steep slopes. So I would get someone who's really good, and does something beautiful and really functional for you, so that it lasts a long time, Natalia. All right, so that question's answered. So let me see if there's any others. Um, oh dear. So this person is saying there's no link for tonight. It's inside the course under live webinars. We are live now. Right. So that person got the live shout out in text form. All right. So there's no other questions from there. Sorry, I'm just going around collecting questions from all these different places. But I can go over here and see that all right. So this is great. Perfect. All right, so it looks like people are migrating over there to the YouTube Live. Great. So I am going to talk about one last thing. I think, unless, oh, the questions that were on the Facebook, I was going to answer those. All right. Well, I will review those later, but I just want to say that you can get your design done, that you will be able to get these things done. The stuff that you technologically can't do, you can get help with. You can get the shortcuts. And if you can't, there are ways to go out there. You can map the way down. You can map the flow of water. You can make a wind path map. You can show those effects on your site, so that as you plan and map, that you plan accordingly and you have all those things included. That's the most important aspect. That's why we use topographic maps, so that we are understanding our site at such a depth, such a deep level, that we can make really bold, dynamic decisions to make it serve us at the highest level. So that's why we do that. Thank you all for watching and asking good questions. I'm gonna just peek one last time over here and see if there's any other questions. Sweet, a Johnson level. Yeah, it's a Johnson level for sure. It's a scope, is how is what it is as well. But I think your findings are probably more accurate than my Johnson scope. I think that's me just saying what Jeff Lawton's called it. So they might call it down a Johnson scope down in Australia, and it might be a Johnson level in America. I don't know. Pond and dam are interchangeable between our countries as well. So, all right, that is everything. This has been us talking about our mapping, talking about how topographic maps are useful, how we can use them, and then the spectrum of by hand, computer DIY, and professional level representations of maps, and how that you can go to that level. It's very expensive to DIY at. It's much more inexpensive to hire someone to do it for you who is already invested in that. So increasingly, we're going to see people who are experts at this emerge and then serve the permaculture community. There just needs to be more demand. And as people are finding that the Google Earth and GPS stuff doesn't serve them at the level they would like it to, we're going to see increasingly those services being needed until they get to the point where they become free parts of the apps. All right. So that is what I see happening. I may go a little differently, but I see that is happening. I'm Matt Powers. This has been a live webinar for the Advanced Permaculture Student Online. We've been talking about mapping, topographic mapping, the reasons why, and how to get our designs done. And I hope you get your design done soon. And I hope that you reach out if you have questions. You reach out to me in the community if you need help with anything. We'll help you get it done. We'll help you get through those hoops. We'll make sure that you get your PDC, you get your skills, you get your understanding so that you can serve yourself, your community, your family, and your future at the highest level. Again, I'm Matt Powers. Grow abundantly, learn daily, and live regeneratively. And thank you so much for joining me.